Everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. My conversation today is with Jaclyn Leeds, the Executive Director of the Animal Defense Partnership. Animal Defense Partnership, or ADP, provides free legal services to nonprofits that advocate for animals and plant-based diet change, positioning these organizations for long-term success and impact. Hi, Jacqueline. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I know how incredibly busy you are with being an attorney and the work that you do at ADP, and I know you're a mom, so I really appreciate you making the time to speak with me today.
Oh, my pleasure. I really admire what you're doing. Listening to several of your episodes, how many dogs you've fostered and how many you've highlighted. I thank you for doing what you're doing.
Oh, thanks. I really love it. So let's talk about ADP because I didn't know an organization like this existed. I was so excited to hear about it. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the start of ADP and the work that you guys are doing today?
Yeah, so excitingly, we're actually celebrating this month our 10th anniversary. Actually, it's next Sunday to the day.
That's amazing.
So ADP was founded in 2016 by two attorneys, David Ebert and Joel Litvin, both who had been many decades, and illustrious career attorneys that both loved animals. And as they retired, wanted to use their skills to make a difference for animals. And so they were introduced by a mutual friend, got together, created this organization. And I think fully anticipated that they would use this just as a vehicle for them to provide some legal services to a handful of animal organizations. And I don't think they ever anticipated that it would become the organization that it is today. We've worked with over 475 animal protection nonprofits across the US. And
Wow.
it's David and Joel did an amazing job setting the foundation for that.
So 475 animal protection organizations across the US. I imagine that that is a big scope of what you're defining as an animal protection organization.
It is. So we work with organizations that work with all sorts of species and across all modes of advocacy. So, species, farmed animals, companion animals, wild animals, laboratory animals, you name it. Marine animals, mammals, increasingly fish as well. And then in terms of modes of advocacy, we have organizations that are doing broad scale policy change and pushing for legislative reform. A couple organizations that are doing strategic impact litigation, a lot of organizations that are doing the hands-on rescue and sanctuary, um, organizations that are building community locally, just all sort of education, humane education, all sorts of modes of helping make the world a better place for animals.
One of the things about doing this podcast is it's really exposed me to how much is going on in the animal advocacy and in animal welfare world. And I'm always in awe of all these new organizations that I learn about. It's pretty incredible stuff. So in 10 years, 475 of them, it's probably just like the tip of the iceberg across the world.
I'm sure it is. And we work predominantly, we're US lawyers, so predominantly in the US, although a lot of our clients are doing work overseas as well. But it's really inspiring being in this position and getting to see all of the passion that there is toward animals, because living certainly in the day-to-day world and listening to the news, it's a very different lens than when you get to work directly with the people who passionately care about making a difference.
So can you expand a little bit on what you mean by you work with these organizations? What does that look like for ADP and the work that you guys do exactly?
So we provide legal advice. We don't do any litigation. We do everything on the transactional side. So that's everything from governance, getting organizations set up or cleaned up to just govern and run really smoothly, intellectual property, employment, HR issues, everything that really any business would run into in terms of running, plus nonprofit compliance. And
So
we,
how Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. I apologize. I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say, so I mean, our model, we're different from a law firm. Well, in one that we don't charge any of our clients and we're completely donor funded. So that's probably the primary difference between us and a law firm. But the other thing is that we really are invested in empowering the leaders of the organizations that we're working with to not be dependent on legal services, to really understand what it is that we're suggesting, working with our clients to implement our counsel. We've started offering webinars and guides to teach people about the basics of legal pitfalls that they might run into in running an organization, um, and just really working closely with people to help them become better leaders, or I should say, uh, more legally founded, stronger legal foundation.
Right. There's a lot that goes into actually good leadership. Making sure that everything is by the books is certainly a big piece of that puzzle, but there's a lot of other things that go into it, as we know. So, are you guys able to help organizations in any state? Like, I know that some of the licenses that I carry are state specific. So, do you have attorneys across all 50 states and our territories? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do not have attorneys across all 50 states. We currently have four full-time attorneys, I guess five if you count me, licensed across, I believe it's 7 states. A lot of the advice that we're providing is nonprofit compliance, most of which is federal. And so the state lines there don't matter. Uh, in terms of more localized issues, again, a lot of what we're providing is general guidance, where the jurisdiction specific nuances are not super relevant. Um, and then there are matters that are highly localized that we refer out to local counsel where it doesn't make sense for us to work on that.
So, do you find that the relationships that you have with these organizations are typically when they're getting started, or is it kind of across the board? Like maybe they've been running for a while and they're getting a little bit bigger and they feel like they're coming across some things where they need to have some stuff in order. What does that normally look like for you guys?
I mean, it's really the full sort of life cycle spectrum of organizations. We do work with a lot of people who are still in the ideation period of, I think I might want to start a nonprofit, and is that the best vehicle to help animals? Through to organizations in their first few years that are just getting up and running, to giant organizations who often actually even have in-house counsel, but are looking for outside legal expertise to bounce ideas off of or to do more um, specialized strategic work where just having another lawyer and a set of eyes is really helpful for them. And so it's really, we get to work with a whole range of organizations.
You guys have some partners yourself that I imagine help with like donation and funding for your organization. Is that right?
We are funded primarily by diversity of foundations, plus some individual donor support. We do not receive any for-profit corporate funding at this point in time. We also really benefit, in kind support from other capacity building organizations within the animal protection movement. So, an example is we've worked with vegan hacktivists and Violet Studios. It's an organization that provides tech capacity building support, and I'm really underselling them. They're really incredible. But they worked with us to rebuild our website and to help with our logo and to help with our graphic design, all these things that we don't have skills in house that they provided to us for free. So there's a lot of reciprocal help within the movement, which benefits us as well, in addition to actual funding.
So I'm sure that you have a lot of the similar conversations that I do when you talk about like the work that you do. I obviously talk about it on the volunteer side, but I hear a lot of people say, and I've even said it like, oh, if I won the lottery, I would start a dog rescue or I would start an animal rescue or this or that. But you know better than anyone um, that it's not just about the money, right? There's so much more that goes into it. So, what are some things and some, pieces of consideration that you would pass along to anybody that maybe is considering starting a nonprofit?
I think there are a couple threshold questions, if you will. The first is, is anyone else already doing this? Is there another organization already doing this work in your area? Could you volunteer or partner with them so that you're doing the work without creating more organizational overhead? Uh, I think it's the 2025 USA or Giving USA report shows that less than 4% of philanthropy in the US goes toward animal and environmental organizations. So it's actually less than 4% that goes to that combined animal and environmental. So there's not a lot of money, relatively speaking, in the animal world. And if somebody can support something that already exists to make it stronger without creating more overhead and need for more funding, then that's an incredible route to go to help animals. If the answer to that is no, it doesn't make sense to partner or someone's not already doing that work, the next question is a nonprofit the right structure? Um, we've seen that a lot of people start nonprofits when maybe that's not actually the best vehicle for them. They might need a fiscal sponsor or a giving circle or even a really strong volunteer network. Forming a 501c3, which is the federal tax exempt piece of having a nonprofit, comes with administrative overhead. You have board governance, tax filings, compliance, reporting, and all of that takes time and energy away from doing the actual mission work. And so the question of, uh, I guess you asked the question, do I want to run an organization or do I want to help animals? And is the answer to that the same thing? And it's not always the same answer. Sometimes you could better help animals without starting the organization. Um, if you do decide that starting the organization is the best next step, I think one of the first things to think about is building a really strong board. It's very tempting to put together a board of, your friends and treat the board as sort of a rubber stamp so that you can have a board on paper. But a board that's been well thought out in terms of what the organization actually needs can be one of the organization's strongest assets. And so really putting time and effort and attention into putting together a board, like before you get up and running, I think pays off in the long run. Um, the second piece of that is getting your governance right from the start. So again, taking the time to think about your bylaws, conflict of interest policies, just general procedural things before there's an issue, so that the organization is built up, on a strong foundation. Um, and then I think the third piece is thinking about funding. I think sometimes people think that, well, once I'm tax exempt, money will just fall into our lap. And I mean, the sad thing is that just doesn't happen. And so really thinking through, like, where is my first year of revenue coming from? And what is going to be the funding model? So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have that funding in pocket, but having thought that through is really critical to having an organization that's actually going to be able to achieve its mission.
I One of the things that comes top of mind when you talk about this is how so many of us sometimes take a hobby and decide we want to start a business and then don't realize what it means to start a business and what kind of like paperwork and what it really means to run a business and how that actually can kind of take away from the joy that you find in the hobby itself. And you're describing kind of as a small business owner what I've experienced. Like running the business is different than making the product or selling the product. They're two wildly different things. So like running a nonprofit and, starting a nonprofit is wildly different than volunteering to take in dogs or do behavior assessments or foster or whatever. It's a completely separate thing, completely
Of
separate undertaking.
Absolutely, 100%, and agreed, both in the for-profit and nonprofit worlds. That's true. And it could be an entirely new thing to you, and it could still be the best step forward. And then it's just about bringing in people around you
Right.
that have those skills, and you can leverage other people's expertise. But it is an entirely different thing than doing the hands-on work.
Right. It's not just saying, okay, well, like I'm going to buy this big thing of property and I'm going to rescue dogs, right? Which is the dream for
Dream.
sure.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's so many different pieces that come with it that you have to think about. How do you guys like? I'm getting exposed a little bit more with the organization I work with. I'm getting a little bit more exposed to some of the county like laws and things that are impact the rescue, right? And it's so important that we stay on top of whatever the rescue has to abide by. How do you guys teach people how to navigate their own municipality or their own state or their own county? Because like you said, you guys are not states, you're not covering every state. And even if you were covering every state, there is no way you could know the ins and outs of every municipality and what they do and don't require. So how do you guys teach people to navigate that in their own area?
Absolutely, and I'd add that also, even if we did know everything, things change constantly, and so that would be an
Right.
impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, uh, the answer is really teaching people to ask the right questions. I think one of the biggest, y- problems in starting something or running something is you don't know what you don't know, and that's true across everything for all people. And so we help teach people, here's what you need to look for, and here's where you should look for it. So if your municipality like has this, you should look to see if this exists. Licensing, permitting, looking to see if any of the USDA licensing is applicable depending on like type of animal and activity. So asking the right questions.
Do you guys maintain a relationship for like an extended period of time with the organizations that you're in? Or is it like you might solve this one problem or help them to get off the ground and then you're kind of just like out of it? How does that work?
We take on matters on a per matter basis. So we do work one project at a time, but a lot of the organizations that we're working with, we're doing many, many projects for them over the course of years. So while we assess each request or each need individually, we have long term relationships with many, if not most, of our the organizations that we work with, and also a lot of times an organization will come in with request A, and our lawyers take a look at it and think, oh, we actually need like request B and C. So let's help you with that. And then we'll get to A. And we help out more holistically.
Do you ever find, I mean, I'm sure that you do, this might be a silly question, but I imagine that you've had people come to you and say, I want to start this organization. And then you kind of start to counsel them and go through with them what that looks like. And then they just entirely go, this is too much.
Yes, that has happened. And we've changed our application process sort of in response to that to help guide people through here's what you should think about if you think this is the right next step so that you're more prepared for the work. And we offer people a very basic business plan template, a series of questions of here's the things you should have in mind coming into starting an organization. And we are happy to help walk people through things, but there are just questions that people really need to think about the answers that we don't have those answers. They're not legal questions, right? To help us help them.
How would you respond to somebody who says, I just want to help X, Y, and Z animal. I just want to rescue or I just want to be able to take them in. I'll figure out the rest of it later. Like, what are some sort of negatives and pitfalls that can arise from not thinking these things through in the beginning?
Oh gosh. Uh, mm, Limitless.
Hey, we got time. I'm not going anywhere. We're only
um,
20 minutes in. Give me the negatives. Well, because I think that people go into this, and please correct me if you feel differently. Jaclyn, but people go into this pure of heart. They just
That's
want to help, right? And they just want to find, like, I went into fostering because I needed to do something more fulfilling with my life. Right? Like that's why I started it. And so I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. And if they can spend their day helping animals instead of maybe going into, a job that they don't find fulfilling, they wanna be able to do that, and I guess I just not that I wanna scare people from having those dreams and those goals and those ambitions, but I I wonder sometimes if people think through kind of the negative side of things, or if they just think that, like, as an attorney, you're, catastrophizing, I think is the right word, right? So, like, what are some of these consequences that can come from not figuring that out on the front end?
well, it is possible that they could do this and it would go well, right? That's always possible. Both things can be true. But sort of first thing is where's the money coming from? If the plan is to quit your day job to start working with animals directly, I mean, if this were me, my question would be is like, how am I paying my mortgage? And really
Right.
thinking that through. More legally speaking, it's really a whole list of issues, right? Are you going to bring on a staff? How are you classifying them? Are they employees or independent contractors? Because if you do it wrong, there are tax consequences. What about insurance? If you're working with animals, what happens if someone gets bitten? If you're adopting out animals, what happens, or fostering animals, what happens if that person gets bitten? What happens when there's an internal board dispute? If you don't have bylaws set up well, then you don't have the structure to know how to handle that. So there's all the internal governance things. So it's really just a limitless list of issues, many of which are preventable with the right infrastructure in the first place.
Set the foundation and you can build the building on top of it.
Yes, well said.
So, what can people expect if they reach out to your organization and they are maybe just looking to see if this is something that they want to do? Like, what does that application look like if they wanted to work with a group like yours?
And are you asking for people that are already running or involved or running an organization, or for people for whom it's an idea?
Both. Maybe, I've spoken to a couple of really, organizations that are kind of smaller, and they have maybe just a handful of volunteers and it's kind of running out of their house. And maybe they will listen to this and go, oh my gosh, I could really use advice. Am I doing things the right way? Do I need to make some adjustments? Or maybe I'm listening to somebody who aspires to start or I'm talking to somebody who aspires to start their organization. I would say maybe both. What does that look like on your end?
I think it's what we were just talking about, right? It's just really thinking through where's the money coming? Do I actually really want to spend the time on the administrative pieces to make this a nonprofit, or does it make more sense to do direct rescue myself? I think there are a lot of practical questions that actually supersede the legal questions. Which, where is the money coming from? If you're starting a rescue, is that going to be on your private property? What does that look like long term? If you're going to create an organization that essentially revolves around you as the founder, or is actually entirely dependent on your personal property, where's the succession planning and what is that going to look like? And taking that into consideration before you even start, and really just having a clear goal in mind or a clear objective. Is the objective to create something that outlasts you, and grows, and what's the scale? Or is the goal to do something yourself for, a contained amount of time? And then given that, what makes the most sense?
So, on a personal level, what's the most interesting organization that you've worked with that's doing work that just feels really unique and is so different from something people might already know about?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard question. We work with so many cool organizations. Okay, so I will say in terms of It's less dog, cat, but speaking of having hands-on animals, we work with Open Sanctuary Project. They're a nonprofit, and they provide, I'm probably underestimating this, but thousands of resources to sanctuaries, and they're advising sanctuaries around the globe, literally. So if you are
Wow.
running a sanctuary or thinking of running a sanctuary for animals, they have everything that you could possibly want to ask, from animal care to setting up, your sanctuary governance. Uh, they're an amazing resource for that. Uh, we're working with, we've counseled Shrimp Welfare Project that's actually working
Shrimp?
on
Did you say shrimp?
shrimp. Um,
Oh, wow.
how to minimize suffering for shrimp when they get taken for food. We're working with an aquaculture organization that's advocating now for fish. Just really huge, huge. So many of our clients are doing such cool things.
Do you know about the uh economics and the research that's going into possible octopus farming in certain states in the country? Have you heard anything about that? Because I just talked to Pennsylvania voter, or sorry, not Pennsylvania, voters for animal rights in New York State, and they were telling me that they are attempting to preemptively ban octopus farming because it is being researched in their state to see if they can be set up from a business perspective, from a land perspective, from a tax perspective, all of that, to set up octopus farming. And so they're preemptively attempting to ban it because the way that it was described to me was once something has an economy around it, it's incredibly difficult to get it banned on the back end. So they're actually working with legislators now to get kind of a jump on that. When you talk about working with more in the fish world, like my mind goes to that. That's
Yeah,
interesting
I
stuff.
I don't know that much about this in the octopus context, although Allie Taylor is amazing, and I'm so glad that she, in Voters for
I
Animal Rights,
know she really is.
and this, she's incredible. Uh, but I am familiar with that thinking, and probably that reality that's research based, that once something is up and running and there's an economy around it, that it's much harder to dismantle something that exists than something that doesn't yet exist.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that it is. What What is something that you wish people knew in when it comes to animal rescue and animal welfare? Like we all have that kind of like 30-second elevator pitch when we're at a party and people say like, "What do you do?" And you're like, this is the thing that I preach. This is the thing that I talk about. This is the thing that I wish more people knew." What is that for you, Jaclyn?
Are you asking me as a lawyer or as an animal lover?
You can answer however you'd like to. I'm asking you as a human and you can go about it however you want.
I'd say, as a person and an animal lover, I would say that there's just, the right approach is the one that works for you and that is helping animals. And I think that there's a lot of contention within animal protection about what is the right approach, quote unquote, right approach, because we can see the mass suffering and that's hard to watch. Um, but we haven't figured out the one right approach. And I don't think there is one. And I think everybody who wants to help animals should feel empowered to figure out the best way that they can help animals and then pursue that. And you actually meant to mention earlier, when we were talking about helping animals your job. There are so many ways to use your existing skill set to help animals without making it a full-time job. Um, David and Joel were retired when they started Animal Defense Partnership, so not an exactly analogous example, but they were not animal lawyers. They were lawyers who used their legal skills and their lawyering skills to help animals. And actually, all four of our lawyers at ADP come with a corporate background and are really capable of the range of practice they are because they have that background. But serving on a board as a professional, not just a lawyer, any CPA, accountant, any other professional, um, is so valuable. And there's so many ways to volunteer, serve on a board, help out within your profession that don't require doing it full time. But yeah, so
I
that
love
would be
that.
my general advice is just feeling empowered to take the skills that you have and that make you excited, and use them.
I love that because I talk about that when it comes to fostering because I get a lot of like, "Oh my gosh, I could never do that. It's so great what you do, and I love animals, but I could never foster." I'm like, "Okay, don't foster. You can pick one of like 100 other things to do." I just had a customer who came into my day job, and he's an older gentleman, and he's retired, and he loves the dogs, like, he loves seeing the dogs at work, and he's like, "Oh, man, I can't really have a dog and this and that," and I said, "Well, animal protectors, the rescue that I've had on the podcast, they're right here in my community." I said, they do a doggy day out program, and you can go whenever you want, and you can take it if you're on the list, you can take a dog out, and you can literally spend the day, hang out with the dog, get the dog out of the shelter. The staff can get, information from you about the personality of the dog outside of the shelter environment. Therefore, the dog is much more likely to get adopted. I said, "You don't have to foster. You don't have to have a dog at your apartment. You can, clean, you can organize." Like you said, I have one of my best friends is an accountant. She could, if Lord knows she doesn't have time, but she could donate her accounting skills.
Yeah.
There's really no end to the need of just volunteers and people who just want to lend their help and lend their expertise in the animal welfare world.
Yeah, I mean, the animals need all of us, and we all come with different backgrounds and skills and passions, and that's a beautiful thing, ultimately, that we're not all the same. Mm. And I love that the taking a dog out for a day. That's what a sweet way, especially for seniors, and
Yeah.
everybody, especially seniors, to
Yeah.
get to spend quality time that benefits both them and the dog.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody in their local community because I think more and more shelter-based rescues are exploring a program like that because of the immense benefits and the adoptability of those dogs increasing by so much. So, if anybody listening is interested in something like that, just try to find a shelter in your area and just ask them if they have a doggy day out program. And you might be surprised because even if that particular shelter doesn't have one of the things that I found is that the rescue community is very small. Like you're in Oregon and
Mhm.
you know Allie, who is on my podcast, right? And so we are literally 2 degrees of separation away from each other. Well, not now because now we know each other, but the rescue world is super small. And so if they don't have a doggy day out program, there's a very high likelihood that the shelter in your area knows of a rescue that does a program like that or is developing a program like that. So for anybody who has maybe a senior in their life that misses having an animal and maybe can't have it in the place where they live anymore, like I know my grandparents wouldn't be able to have an animal if they wanted one. That's a really, really, really enriching program.
And I will say, if you are listening and you are thinking of starting a doggy day out program, please speak to an attorney about your insurance coverage. A lot of insurance policies exempt animal related issues, and when you have people taking out dogs, you really want to make sure that you have good coverage for everybody.
100%. And as an insurance agent, I second that
I know.
because that
Yeah,
is my day
great.
job. I am in
Nice.
insurance and financial services. So she is 100% correct. I'm really glad that you brought up the insurance side of things because it is a very, very real financial risk to not have the proper coverage in place for, what you have going on and what you're operating. And that being said, I think this also is something that you may have experienced in your profession, maybe not in the animal advocacy space, but be honest with the professionals that are trying to help you about what exactly. You guys can't see this on the podcast, but Jaclyn just smiled and very knowingly shook her head because we as professionals in your space, and because I actually refer customers out to attorneys all the time where I say, that's a legal question. I can't answer that question for you.
Yeah.
That's a question for an attorney. But if you're not honest with us up front, because maybe you're worried about our perception of you, or maybe you're worried that, like in my world, it's going to cost more money. The reality of it is you're not going to end up with the right product anyway. So you're kind of going to end up, biting your butt in the back end. And like for you, Jaclyn, if they're not telling you up front, like what's going on, you can't probably give them the proper advice that they need,
Right.
even if it's uncomfortable or it really changes everything.
Yeah, I'm smiling because that's, yes, true in the legal world as well. Being honest with us is how we can help you the best. If we're missing information or we have the wrong
100%.
information, then our guidance is potentially really unhelpful. Yeah,
Right,
honest.
exactly. It could be even, like, damaging if we set you up
Yeah,
with the
absolutely.
wrong thing, if you are saying, because I didn't know that there was a difference between, a 501, C3 and the one that Pennsylvania Voters for Animals has. I think it was a 501
Are
something
they five?
4, I think she said?
Yeah, a 501(c)(4), they lobby, I think. Yeah.
Right, right. So I didn't even know there was a difference there. So depending on the work that you're trying to do, you don't wanna get set up with the wrong tax paperwork because 'cause that'll really bite you in the butt.
Yes, definitely. And if you're interested in doing lobbying, understanding permissible limits of lobbying as a 501(c)(3), where you can do some limited lobbying, that's really, it's much more complicated than that. But you can do some limited lobbying versus more lobbying or the kind of lobbying where you may need a 501(c)(4). Understanding that distinction is really important from the get go.
Absolutely. So tell people how they can find your organization if they are interested in learning more or checking out any of the webinars that you guys have.
You can go to our website, animaldefensepartnership.org, and we have all of our upcoming webinars listed there. We have our application for legal services there. We also actually are now offering pro bono mediation and conflict resolution as well. So we don't do litigation, but we do really want to help people not get to litigation. And so we have this amazing volunteer, highly experienced mediator who's volunteering her time so that we can offer these services to the animal protection movement as well. So that application for that is also on our site.
Love that because we know that just like in any partnership and any relationship, conflict can arise, and in animal rescue, it can absolutely come up and does come up. And it unfortunately the animals typically suffer when those kinds of things are happening. So that's a wonderful service you guys are offering.
Yes, I think so. I'm a little biased, but I think so. I think I
No,
think
I mean I think it really is.
yeah.
So, I think that this is a really good time to just talk about our foster spotlight for today, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
And I'm going to do something I haven't done in a couple of, probably a month or two at least. And I'm going to share my screen here. But I thought talking to Jaclyn and talking about kind of the way that you have to think things through when it comes to deciding that you want to save an animal um, was a really good opportunity for me to do an update on Max. And for those of you that are, that you have been following the podcast for a while, you have heard me talk about Max in a couple of different episodes. And so, Jaclyn, to introduce you to Max, Max is our current foster. He's been with us. Next month will be a year that he's been with us. And I have been calling Max our behavioral foster because Max comes with some quirks where he can be reactive on leash to other dogs. He is otherwise dog friendly. He goes to doggy daycare. We've had 2 foster puppies now with him, and he's been incredible. But he also, and I think this is kind of the bigger concern, is that he can be reactive with new people, where he just wants to create space between him and people that he doesn't know. So I wanted to give everybody a little bit of an update because just like when you go to reach out to an organization like ADP, you have to think about every kind of little aspect that could come with rescuing animals. When you foster a dog, you do have to think about sometimes there are fosters that are more challenging than others. And Max is one of those guys. So Just to give you guys an update, we have been working with a trainer. The trainer was sponsored for like 6 different sessions by Cross Your Paws. We are so grateful for the commitment that Cross Your Paws has made to Max and us continuing to work with Max. And he is doing so much better on walks with leash reactivity. You know, progress in any scenario is not linear. And so we do have these incredible successful walks where we don't get any reactions. And then we have other walks where another dog is just simply existing and he decides he wants to react. But we have learned how to redirect him and get him out of those reactions so that we can make sure that we have a very quick reaction recovery, which is also really important for everybody's safety, including Max's. We are continuing to work with him with meeting new people, and we're actually going to do some work on that this coming Saturday with a very dog savvy friend of ours. And we are finding that after a couple of meetings and after extended time with a person, he is getting his threshold of excitability down so that he is then able to coexist with those new people, which we're so grateful for. Um, it's still a work in progress as far as Max is concerned. And just to reiterate, if anyone is considering looking into Max a little bit more, his perfect home does not include kids, not because he is not kid friendly. Let me be very clear about that. I am certain that he would love any of his kids, but when you have kids in your house is more chaotic than when you don't have children, I think. You just have more people coming in and out, and it can be in and out on an unannounced basis, which is not the best environment for a dog like Max, right? And so we don't recommend putting him in that environment where he could potentially be set up for failure. So I am still in love with him, and my husband loves him. He has been a challenge for us, but challenging dogs um, make you learn a lot about yourself and what you are capable of. And we truly adore Max, and we know that his right home is out there. We just know that someone is going to have to make a commitment to having a dog that is not going to be the yes, you can come pet my dog, even though you've never met him dog. And to start out your relationship with your dog, knowing that is very different than already having a dog that you're in love with and then figuring out that that's how you have to let people know to interact with your dog. So, but Max is doing incredibly well. Like I mentioned, we had 2 foster puppies recently with Max, and he was the best foster brother. He was playing with them. He was showing them how to go outside. He was showing them how to patrol the fence line because Lord knows he's always on patrol. So that's our foster spotlight today. And as always, I will put the link for Max's bio in the show notes. If you have any questions about Max and about the work that we're doing, you can certainly DM me. You can send me an email at the fosterfilespodcast at gmail. And I did want to let anyone listening know who's considering Max. Michael and I have decided that for anyone that adopts Max, if we do have a successful adoption, we are going to sponsor a 3-session training package for the trainer that we are working with now. And we are doing that because we are committed to making sure that when Max ends up in a home, it's going to be his forever home. And we want those owners to have the skills that we have learned, because training is not just about training the dog. It's as much, if not more, about training the humans to be able to safely and appropriately interact with the dog. So that is our foster spotlight for today. My boy Max.
I
So
he's
go
precious.
ahead, Jaclyn.
He's absolutely precious. Max is absolutely precious. If you're in the position of
Yeah.
running a foster program, it is worth having your foster agreement reviewed by an attorney. We see a lot of people or a lot of organizations get documents from online. And the issue is that that's an agreement that was created for someone else's situation in someone else's state that may not be relevant. And foster agreements are liability documents. What
Hmm.
happens if injured? What happens if someone takes the animal to the vet without authorization? There's a giant bill. What if the foster refuses to return the animal? Um, so many issues. And so if you are running a or adoption program, which is a separate set of issues, please, you're welcome to come to us to review your foster agreement, but it's worth having an attorney set of eyes on it.
And so that's animaldefensepartnership.org for anybody that is interested in reaching out to that incredible resource because you guys provide that for nonprofits for free.
Yes. Yeah, all for free.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Jaclyn, is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with today before we end our conversation?
I, I think it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'd say if you're thinking about starting an organization, just thinking about the funding. Something I didn't mention is the public support test. The IRS requires that a certain amount of your funding come from a variety of sources. So it's truly public support. And if you don't meet that test, you can get reclassified as a private foundation, which is much more restrictive. But so thinking about funding from a practical standpoint, a tax standpoint, et cetera, is probably one of the first things to think about. And if it seems like that's the right step to start an organization, just I would encourage you to take the time to do it right, and do it well so that you are set up for long-term success in helping a lot of animals. And if you're currently running an organization, I don't be embarrassed to ask for help. Um, the earlier that an organization can get help with an issue, um, the less that the issue escalates. And we are certainly always here and available to help with most transactional issues, not all, I should say. But it's, reach out to an attorney in your community or to us or to someone on your board and be honest, as we talked about what's going on. But please don't be too embarrassed to ask for help, even if you've been up and running. It's worth getting the clarification. And I guess the only other thing I would add is thank you for being invested enough to be listening to this podcast. Thank you, Kelly, for doing what you're doing. And just thanks for making a difference and caring about animals.
Wonderful advice. Just ask for help. I love that. I think we need that in so many aspects of our life. And I think it also is so important. Like you want to help these animals and, for the action around these animals, but sometimes you need help and just ask for help. And organizations like Animal Defense Partnership are out there and they're willing and they want to help. That's why they exist. That's why these people are there to help you. So remember, animaldefensepartnership.org. I will put the link in the show notes. And just as a reminder, I have started a monthly newsletter. So if you have not yet subscribed to my newsletter, which is just going to be once a month, I am not going to spam your inbox, I promise. You can find the link for that in my Instagram bio. If for some reason you can't figure it out, you can send me a message, you can send me an email. If there is somebody like Jaclyn that you think that I should be talking to, please send me an email. I love really good suggestions. But Jaclyn, I am so grateful for your time today. I'm so glad we could make the schedule work. You're all the way out in Oregon and you made it work for me. And I really, really appreciate you. And thank you so much. And I just want to remind everyone to be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals. Have a great day.